And we have a Tetsot. Tetsot's coming out today. Tetsot's everywhere.
Tedzot, and ErrantSquire 3-0 with Benoshi.
And these are pretty non-standard champions. No nonsense with Tetsot, I assume, is also 3-0. I'll confirm that real quick, but he must be at least 2-1. He is also 3-0. So Tetsot 3-0 and Benoshi 3-0. That's confirmed. And very interesting, honestly. It seems like the metagame is taking another shift.
Right at the end of Set Two's constructed metagame. Of course, this is the foundation for Set 3's constructed metagame. It does take a little while for new cards to settle in, as people often take their, at the end of Set 1 constructed, people stayed with their mainstays for a little while, exploring new cards very cautiously.
It's pretty cool to see. We notice here that Nononsense does take a redraw on his hand there. Draws a fresh hand of 6 cards, loses a card, but hopefully he's got a more consistent hand this time. Plays a Shard of Innovation. He chooses to go for Sapphire. We can only assume that means he has the Ruby already in hand. 2 minion of Yazakan. That actually bodes quite well for ErrantSquire here. He's got the Shard of Fate in hand, and being able to play the Shard of Fate the following turn and also have a play of the minion of Yazakan is quite good for him.
Whenever I see one of these minion of Yazakans in draft, and I quickly look up its price, it's always like above 200 platinum, and it's not. I hadn't really seen it make any kind of constructed showing, and it's like, why is this card consistently above 200 platinum? Why are that means people obviously want minion of Yazakan and want this card. Have you seen Minion of Yazakan being used in constructed in particular, or I mean, like arena being a popular reason for a card holding its value? It being a Shin here just naturally, people love their zombie bunnies.
There are cards that hold their value even if they are not used too much in constructed. Vampire King's a prime example of that, actually. Before Set 2 came out, Vampire King was holding its value very steadily despite being pretty much completely knocked out of the metagame. Due to what was going on. It was out for a very long time. It didn't really come back until Set 2 came in. But it held its value just because people, generally speaking, the community can recognize when a card has significant value. And this is actually pretty good for him. I mean, Minion of Yazakan here obviously can't really be permanently removed short of voiding it. He's got a Root Dancer in his hand. He's got another one next turn. Just hitting these +2/+2s onto the minions. Like, I can't...
That's gonna hurt.
That is gonna hurt. That means the other Root Dancer in his hand is going to be a 5 cost. But yeah, I mean, there isn't really many better targets for Root Dancer buffs than a Minion of Yazakan. That's a pretty strong target if ever there was one. Unfortunately, not going to be the case for Errant here. That counter magic was a pretty strong one.
That also delays the rest of his hand. No card in his hand is playable right now.
But yeah, Minion of Yazakan is a 1-drop single threshold, which is quite strong. Its effect is also very strong. It basically is the low-cost variant, I suppose, of an Inquisitor. Like, it has that ability to just not die, and obviously with Benoshi that's very strong. But not only is it a very aggressive and strong troop in terms of just generally attacking your opponent, but it has this potential for combo decks in the future, and that's really why I think it holds its value. It can do a lot of things, and just the potential of the card, people recognize that, and that's why it's expensive. I imagine it will get more expensive over time. As Fate Sorceress coming down, we see the sockets are when it enters play, it deals damage directly, and the other socket is, I'm not sure.
Given that it's not flight, it probably is quick.
That seems strange, though. I mean, I guess it must be. I suppose, having said that, having Quicken it, maybe simply so he can play it during his end phase if he doesn't use a interrupt, and then bring out the Tetsu Elemental on the following turn. So it could just be like an interrupt deck style choice there, where it's being brought in quick. But
Chat is confirming it was played at the end of ErrantSquire's turn.
mhm. Completely missed that talking about Minion Vyazakan, but that's okay.
That's all right.
But yeah, I mean that seems like it could be pretty good. I mean, plays like that are pretty strong when you're running heavy interrupts. A Crackling Bolt. This is going to be to get that charge power online.
I was about to say he's short one charge for that charge power, but he gets a 4/4. It's not speed, but it is going to deal 4 damage to ErrantSquire. So despite having quite a bit in hand, well, double minions are out again.
They are, but they can't actually block. But the play here is probably going to be, if I were a betting man, it would be double swing and extinction, because he's nearly dead on board. Otherwise, one more troop would kill him. It's basically a question of if Nononsense has a verdict here.
And that would be better to do, as that Azure Fate Sorceress could simply turn any 4-cost or higher troop into just, I nuke you and you dead. And the minions don't particularly mind being extinctioned.
They quite like it, in fact. They do quite like it. They go back underground, gain an extra attack point, and for now, ErrantSquire is safe, and he does have a follow-up that's quite strong. That's pretty rough. That's pretty rough. It's lucky, actually, that the Azure Fate was gone, because that would have dealt 3 damage coming in, and also drawn him a card from dealing the damage there. He might need to extinction here. It looks like he's thinking about it, and he does. The Dreamer being unblockable and card advantage was really not good for him there.
4 costs to make sure you don't die in 3 turns, unanswerable, unblockable? Yeah, seems okay. And if he waited one more turn, that is another 3 he's taking. And it forces Nononsense to Mastery of Time just to get his extra turn. He does only have 1 card left in hand. His charges are all used up.
Well, of course, those minions would surface and nearly kill him. Mastery of Time again. He's trying to find an answer for these 2 minions that are about to happen. That extinction was a complete turnaround.
Forced to play a Reese off the top. Of course, that's not actually that bad of a thing. And he's going to get a worker bot at the end of each turn. It's not a random robot, but in terms of having things to block these minions coming out from under. At the same
Best
time,
top deck here for Errant would probably be a shard, honestly. That's not bad, though. But the shard would have been strong there, because he could have played the Root Dancer and made both of these minions able to trade with the Reese there. In the current state, he can block one of them with Reese and chump the other one with Workerbot, but had he got that resource, they would have both killed Reese. Decides just to chump here. Well, trade, in a sense. Opting for the higher cost Master Moss here. Obviously, the opponent doesn't know he has that second Master Moss in his hand.
he's not strictly dying to this Reese. And Nononsense is only is top decking at this point. He needs basically to remove the Master Moss and then deal extra damage with Reese in order for it to be fatal. ErrantSquire almost not playing the Chlorophilia.
Decides not to, hovers over the Root Dancer, realizes that he can't do both, and then just goes for a swing anyway. Does need to block with Reese here, so Nononsense is once again in a situation where he has a minion of Yazakan coming next turn, and assumedly Aaron's going to play another troop here, which will be the Vampire King.
Is safer, gets health gain. Well, but actually, would an opponent assume that Vampire King's in this deck? It's kind of a minor thing, playing a second Moss. You know Moss is in the deck, versus showing the Vampire King here in game 1. Deck lists aren't public yet. But it's not looking good for Nononsense. Buccaneer will save a little bit.
Okay, unless that's a Fissuresmith, this is pretty much all she wrote. He will survive on 1. The Vampire King will go through, the minion will be blocked.
Unless he's got something for the Vampire King, because the Vampire King is now...
That's true. That's true. There's 0 in hand for Nononsense. That will be game. That shard off the top is an excellent draw for ErrantSquire there, allowing him to put the Vampire King to the point where it can finish him off. That'll be game 1.
Boom, the playing field explodes. ErrantSquire is up 1 game.
Just a testament, really, to how powerful an extinction can be. That, if that card wasn't in ErrantSquire's hand, he almost certainly didn't have the answers for what was going to happen to him. And still, even if he didn't have the second one, he might have been in trouble there. That Dreamer could certainly have finished the game by itself.
Alright, ErrantSquire in reserves, putting some cards in, taking some cards out, or possibly not. We won't know.
I'm still a big fan of this this Tetzot thing. It's looking really good.
Tetzot, the wave of the future. Tetzot finally seeing his day.
I think there's a lot of things that will happen in the next set. There are a lot of possible strategies that can come out of it. One of them being these sort of mass socketing actions and constants that we're seeing.
We don't even know if we're getting new sockets.
It's true. We could have new gems too.
A new
Maybe
set of
throw in
majors.
some dual shard gems in there.
Dual
somehow.
shards. Alright, looks like the game is now come back. Let's do it. So Nononsense losing that last game will be on the play of this game.
It's not a terrible start for Errant here, but with the current hand, he's not playing Chlorophylia until turn 3.
Kind of interesting how that goes.
But on turn 3, he will be able to play both of them, which is, well,
Almost ramping.
almost ramping.
Now he can.
That was actually really strong for him here, because now he's able to get the blood he needs, because, he would have had to go for Wild with that Shard of Fate or the Shard of... that one.
whatever it is. But
Whatever it is.
but now Chlorophylla is now proper ramp. He can get a turn 4 whatever he wants.
That's true. But yeah, I mean, more
Well,
importantly, he
maybe not
has a second
Zentos,
blood.
but he probably wouldn't. I guess depending on what he needs. No, he could still do it.
Almost certainly a Reese goes underground there. It may not be. I mean, maybe the side deck tech is Fissure Smith here, but unlikely.
You don't tunnel a Fisher Smith with nothing on your opponent's side about to attack.
Right, right.
That's something like Buccaneer. You don't Buccaneer on an empty board. That effect is way too powerful.
Crash of Beasts off the top there. So I think now he's... Is he really going to play the Chlorophylla? Looks like he does. I mean, he can play Chlorophylla and also Crash of Beasts here.
Well, with his opponent with 2 Sapphire and 3 resources, the possibility of counter magic was there, and I think he would rather lose the Crash of Beast than say play Master Moss or something and have it bounced. It was bounced anyway, so if something was going to be bounced, it may as well be the Rhinoceros, which could be still played in the very near future.
That's true, and I think the escalation cards probably are quite likely to bring an interrupt out from your opponent. Obviously, he does have the Extinction in his hand. Getting rid of as many interrupts as possible would be ideal for Aaron here. So he's just throwing out the Rhino again.
I think he fears counter magic. If he plays the Master Moss and his opponent has counter magic, it's more painful. The Rhino is something similar. He can handle a Reese, sort of. It's not even a Reese. It's actually a Mesmeric Hypnoscientist.
That is pretty interesting. And I guess it kind of makes sense. You know, if an Azafate was on the board right now, that card would deal 5 damage directly to the face. It does cost 5. It may only cost 2 to put underground, but it's certainly a pretty high damage guy, a 5/2. And if it did come out the same turn as a Tetzot, like in a prior turn he'd use Crackling Bolt or something, you know, that could have gone quite well with a Tetzot.
It also happens to be big enough to block things like Wrathwood Master Moss, even though you do have the Mossling to deal with afterwards. Errant does have a Zentos Inquisitor to make that just a modest 2/2 instead of a giant 5-attack monster. And also has the option to sacrifice for Bonoshi's power. To get it back, he already is at 6 resources, so the Zentos Inquisitor coming back would be just immediately replayed, can give something else minus attack. Just a gift that keeps on giving. Could even be Bonoshi buffed and give -5 attack. Kind of a interesting way to keep your Bonoshi buff lasting, just like putting the buff on a minion of Yazukan.
Azafate comes in here at quick speed, ready for the Tetzot. Does 2 damage directly to ErrantSquire. This ain't too bad. This quick thing is, obviously you don't get the full effect of having your, like, for example here, if he had played that on his own turn, and had the speed gem in it, this Tetzot Elemental would potentially be dealing twice the amount of damage here. But the quick does work quite well. Opts to use Crackling Bolt on the Inquisitor there. This is going to be very nearly enough to kill, leaving him down on 5, which is not really a place you want to be without any life drain.
But Nononsense is at 2 cards. He hasn't played Interrupts when he could have, but he does have 4 open. So this is basically, do you have a verdict? Extinction. You have a verdict, you have a counter magic. The counter magic has been held, so that playing around counter magic, trying not to lose a Master Moss. However, Errant has enough resources to now play something else. So he's at 5. He's actually getting another 2 Rhinos because that Crash of Beast was played earlier. So now 3 rhinos to block 2 things that are small. Only problem here is if there's a troop that comes out and he gets inspired, it's going to be a beating. Nothing has Crush though.
No, a Hypnoscientist would
Hypnoscientist would be game.
do it straight away. Crash of Beast though was actually a really solid pickup for Errant.
Suspense. What does Nononsense have? He is down 1 game here. It's his game 2. He went first, took the play. Has ErrantSquire on the ropes, but he needs to get some damage through.
Whatever he's got, he's taking a long time deciding what he wants to do here. A Buccaneer?
So, which rhino would you like to bounce? Probably one of the 3 costs. It doesn't really matter at this point. He bounced his own Rock Elemental.
That's actually pretty strong. Pretty strong. Because as long as this Azafate Sorceress remains on the board and unscathed, which it is going to, judging by Errant's current hand, it retains the Inspire from before, so when this Rock Elemental comes in next turn, it's going to be dealing 8 damage instead of 4. 4 damage twice. So, judging by what we know and what we see, unless there's a block with Azafate here, Nononsense with that play has actually taken the game.
Little moment of which two attack group would you like to make 0? As long as Nononsense has that interaction in mind, the double Inspire would damage.
I mean, I can't imagine any other reason for returning your own guy there. He knows he's got it. I think Errant knows too, which is why he didn't swing. Yeah, he realizes. Of course, here we go. No way to stop it.
Rock Elemental, played from hand. You don't see that every day, but when it wins you the game, do it. Enters play, deals 4 damage, deals 4 damage. That is a dead bunny. Nothing beats Rock Elemental. There's no paper elemental yet. Rock Elemental.
It's true.
So good.
It's no Scissors Elemental.
Scissors Elemental, just get out. In chat, Briar Legions actually do not die to Reversion because Revert changes them to their base form. Their base form actually has a continuous power, so the continuous power that gives it +2/+2 for each Briar Legion that that you played this game is continuous. So the Revert changes it back to its base form, so it never goes to 0/0 and dies. The reason why it works for things such as Rock Elemental is that Rock Elemental's attack and defense is a modifier, so reverting it brings it back to its base form, which is actually 0 attack, 0 defense. Then it dies. So important to know the distinction between a modifier and the modifier and the continuous power. Technophy saying it even more simply: has, not gets. Has means it keeps it. It's its own. You cannot revert it. You cannot remove it from him. Anyway, let's go ahead and go back into ErrantSquire's game. They're beginning game 3.
One-shotter throws that straight back, and this is looking decidedly better, although he isn't going to get the the turn 1 minion, turn 2 Chlorophylla. He still has plays, which
So
is all he can ask for.
that's the downside of our dual shards and shards of fate. Those early 1-drops have to underdrop.
ErrantSquire, widely known for his love of the Shards of Fate. He really likes that extra level of fixing.
So at the very least, he's got a Chlorophylla, so that's another shard being played. He does want to get to 4 though. 4 is his nice number.
I think Benoshi, for me, is really the only charge power where I'm kind of happy. I would be happy to play Shards of Fate over a, well, not over another dual shard, but just
You don't need every single charge you can get.
Mhm. You pretty much know you're going to get there with Benoshi's charge power.
So he actually thresholds out, has all the threshold he needs.
I mean, he does, and he's kind of debating, I think, whether to play the shard or not. He can play it and go to 4, or he can hold it back for the Root Dancer to buff the minion of the Azucan. And, you know, that will slow him down a little bit, but he looks like he's opting to do that. He obviously doesn't know if he's going to draw a shard next turn or not, so...
It's risky to do that against this opponent's deck. His opponent's deck is part control. He has interrupts. He can do things quick speed at end of turn. So it's a risk to keep Root Dancer and play it the following turn just to get that buff. That buff is important, but as it turns out, counter magic either not good enough to stop the Wild Root Dancer, or he doesn't have one. So now that is a 3/3 minion that is going to be hard to get rid of. In fact, it is so hard to get rid of, Errant's going to sacrifice it himself to give Root Dancer 4/4. To get Root Dancer to 4/4 rather. +2 attack, +2 defense.
2 turns, not really that long in the scheme of things. Fucking Neon Root Dancer, that kind of sucks for ErrantSquire here. However, the Master Moss can come down without fear of any
A little bit
interrupt.
less fear. One threat gone. Now, if only that shard was something different. Well, this is kind of cool. Definitely saving shards to try to make use of Wild Root Dancer.
Indeed, that's another Hypnoscientist. Next turn we get the minion popping up as well, so we actually have a 5/5, a 4/3. Is that 4/3?
It is 4/3. He got +1 attack from dying and has +2/+2 from ErrantSquire's Benoshi.
Plus the Root Dancer, I assume he will play and then play the shot. Ooh, Master of
Except
Time.
for the Mastery of Time.
Now the question is, okay, it does remove the can't block from Master Moss. That would have been a terrible bug if that existed. Fortunately, it doesn't. I've not seen that interaction before, but it's good to know that, you know, that does reset the can't block on Master Moss.
But it can't block
Oh,
if it's
fucking
not
it.
even on the field.
There you go. That is a quick set of damage there. And Nononsense is at 6 charges here. So anytime he gets an Azafate, that's a quick burst of damage too.
Already at 6, and with Azure Fate itself does 2 damage. That it doesn't need too much in order to be the victory condition. Holding all these shards is proving to slow it down way too much. Nononsense may play a bunch of interrupts and quick actions, but it can dish out the damage fairly quickly if you let it.
So all that needs to happen here is a counter magic. There isn't one, so the Root Dancer resolves. The problem here for ErrantSquire is that he has to block the Hypnoscientist. If nothing else happens, he cannot block one of the Buccaneers because the remaining damage would be lethal. So he has to make a trade here rather than a efficient block, which leaves obviously 2/2/2s on the board, and he can only really play one troop at this point next turn, so it's not looking good. Obviously the minion can't block. He's got to trade here. Next turn he can play the Master Moss, but there's still going to be an extra troop with 2 attack that he can't block, and he's going to be on 2. So really, I guess what needs to happen is Errant needs to pick up a Vampire King here. It's the only out I can think of, or of course an Extinction. There are bolts in here. We don't see a bolt though.
That would have been interesting. Double Chlorophylla is enough charges to... Well, he needs something to sacrifice, so that doesn't work. A Crash of Beast would have given him 3 troops to block with, but that Shards of Fate doesn't help him play that.
Well, if the Root Dancer was still on board, the minion would have been, 12, 11 by the end of this play.
But that's all he can do. He's out of resources. The Shards of Fate isn't going to help. Minion can't block.
Seems to me like Nononsense is about to go 4-0.
That's all he can do. That cannot block text on Minion of the Azucan.
The only thing we can hope for now is that we see Nononsense play the Rock Elemental anyway, just to see how big it would have been.
No, ErrantSquire knows. He does say GG. He's gonna let whatever happens happen. It's up to Nononsense to do the plain old double alternate art Buccaneer attack. It's boring. Or he can just make a big Rock Elemental just because. I guess Nononsense double alternate art Buccaneer attack. It is.
So we don't get to see the truth of the Rock Elemental. But we do get to see Nononsense winning and going 4-0. Congratulations, Nononsense.
You're only halfway to an undefeated Swiss.